All right, athletes. What we're going to talk about today is reflexive core stability. So reflexive core stability is the stability that you have when you're not bracing. So people who are lifting heavier weights, moving furniture, whatever, they want to brace, hold their breath, Valsalva maneuver, etc. But what we're talking is the stability that you have when you're moving around. So think dancers, gymnasts, ice skaters, hockey players, football players, soccer players, etc. How do they stay balanced while they're moving? So you think about that as way over here, somebody is unconscious, over here is deconditioned, over here is people who have good core stability, reflexive core stability, and then way over here is people who are lifting heavier weights, 1 rep maxes, power lifters, weightlifters, etc. Now, one thing that I want to back up on is just because as you move through deconditioned to heavier weights does not mean that you necessarily have this reflexive core stability. If you're being trained by a professional strength and conditioning coach, yeah, you're going to work and get that core stability first, that reflexive stability first, then you're going to add load on top of it. As you get to be, if you're a youngster, as you're getting to go through all of these different stages, most of the time you're going to get this nice reflexive core stability by doing body weight stuff, drills, etc., skill drills, etc., and then you're going to add some intensity to that. But it's important to notice, just because you're way over here lifting heavy weights, or if you're aerobically conditioned and you're riding 100 miles or running a marathon, etc., that doesn't mean that you've got that core stability. And so assessment is super important. So let's take a quick step back and think about the muscles that provide that core stability. And those are, they're pretty unique, I think, some qualifications. One is they are slow twitch, so they're there all day if they need to be. Second, they usually just cross a single joint, and they're right up next to the bones. So they're deep in. You're not going to be able to see if you are your reflexive. The muscles that provide reflexive stability are trained because they're way deep in there. And then finally, the last thing, which I think is super important, is the reflexive. Those muscles that were providing reflexive stability, for instance, like rotator cuff muscles, they tend to fire right before you need them. So they know a certain movement pattern. Your brain knows that they're going to need to move in a certain way, and they start firing right before you need them. So think about if you have your kid or your groceries in your hand, you drop your keys onto the ground. How do you deal with that? Well, you deal with that reflexively, right? So you don't just tip over and pick your keys up because you got the groceries of the kid, and you're going to fall right in your face. So the way that you deal with that shows the reflexiveness of, or the reflexive nature of those muscles. So you can kind of tell that doing this, reflexive core stability is super important, training that, super important, and it needs assessment. So the way that we do the assessment is that we take a person through what we call the neurodevelopmental sequence, which is what babies go through when they go from being an infant to when they're walking. So that is, first they start on the ground, supported by the ground. Second, they're on their hands and knees, or their spine is suspended. The third is they're in a kneeling position, whether it be half kneeling or tall kneeling. And they're stacked, so knees, hip, shoulders, head, all stacked on one another. And then finally standing. So supported spine, suspended spine, stacked spine, and then standing. So first things first, when we're going through this, the main thing that we're looking at is, hey, if the majority of the time that we're going to be using core stability is when we're being active. So we want to make sure that we can have a nice deep breath. We're moving that will mimic what we're going to be doing when we're using our reflexive core stability. So first things first, you're going to breathe a lot into the end of your finger. you're going to breathe a little bit right into this web, and then you're going to breathe a little bit less down here. And so that looks like this. You're going to be on your back, your spine is supported. You put your hands down here low at the very tip top of your pelvis, and you're just going to breathe into this. So again, a lot into this middle, into your pointer finger, a little bit into the web, and very little bit back here, but some. Now, you can tell, you push onto this area below your belly button, but above your hip joint, that these muscles are pretty soft. So the next step is, you're going to be on your back, supported, one leg up. See if you can breathe. In and out through the nose, belly is moving, and what you'll see is these muscles now here, below your belly button, above your hip joint, are reflexively a little bit more firm. You don't have to do anything because they work reflexively. But that static loading of the hip joint automatically gets those muscles to work a little bit more, which is what they should be doing. Now the next thing that we're going to do in this static loading is to come up into this position right here. Basically hands and knees that we're going to be in next, in that suspended position. But we're going to be in here. We want to be able to breathe, right? Because we don't need to brace in this position, because our spine is supported, our hips are supported, shoulders are supported. The things that we're going to look for in this position, the cheating, is that people are going to be arching their back, or they're going to feel like their back is working a lot. And then I'm going to ask them to take their spine and move it a little bit closer to the ground. And then next, we're going to go up here into the neck and make sure that these neck muscles, these chest muscles are not working a lot. If they are, we might get them to put their neck into extension here, get these to loosen up, get these to work a little bit more. And take some nice deep breaths. So yeah, these are going to be firm, but you're not bracing, you're not holding and creating core tension. They're just going to do what they need to do because they know that's how they keep the spine safe and the hips stable. Finally, we're going to do dynamic loading of the pelvis. So we're going to be in this position again. We're going to go hip extension, and then maybe a little hip extension with some knee extension. And again, you'll notice that these muscles are reflexively getting tighter. We're not bracing to make them tighter. They're just tighter because they know that that's how they keep the spine safe and the pelvis stable. So that's it. That's the first steps of assessing core stability, reflexive core stability. And we will continue on in the suspended position and stacked position a little bit later. But this is the main thing. This is the main thing we always look at in the beginning, being able to breathe on your back with your legs in 90-90, and then we adjust if that person wants to compensate with their neck muscles or their chest muscles or their low back muscles. All right, see you next time.